I'm going to share the screen. I want to just put in. So I will just first sing Jai Radha Madhava and then we will go into this. Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Gopijana Vallabha, Girvardhari, Jaya Gopijana Vallabha, गिरवरदारी यशोदनंदन ब्रज जन रंजना यशोदनंदन ब्रज जन रंजना यमुना तीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी जय गोपीजन वल्लभा जय कुंज बिहारी जय गोपीजन वल्लभा जय कुंज बिहारी यशोदनंदन ब्रज जन रंजना यशोदनंदन ब्रज जन रंजना यमुना तीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा. So as we had Radhastami just a few days back, a week back, so on this occasion we will just also recite Radhika Stava. So it's another beautiful prayer, and it was this song is basically from Rupa Goswami, one of the 6 Goswamis, and extremely auspicious to sing this song, uh, glorifying Radhika, Radha Mata. Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite Gokula Taruni Mandala Mahite Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite Gokula Taruni Mandala Mahite Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite Gokula Taruni Mandala Mahite Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite Damodara Lir Rati Vardhana Veshi Hari Nishkuta Vrinda Vipineshi Damodara Rati Vardhana Veshi Hari Nishkuta Vrinda Vipineshe Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite Gokula Taruni Mandala Mahite Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite Rishabhanudadi Navashashi Leke Lalita Shaki Guna Ramita Vishake Rishabhanudadi नवशशि लेखे ललिता सखी गुण रमिता विशाखे राधे जय जय माधव दयिते गोकुल दारुणी मंडल महिते राधे जय जय माधव दयिते करुणां कुरु मयि करुणाभरिते सनक सनातन वर्णित चरिते करुणां कुरु मयि करुणाभरिते सनक सनातन वर्णित चरिते राधे जय जय माधव दयिते गोकुल तारुणी मंडल महिते राधे जय जय माधव दयिते गोकुल तारुणी मंडल महिते राधे जय जय माधव दयिते. Hare Krishna. We will just continue with the prayer and then we will dive into the song. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimadi Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Pashatadishatarine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. Thank you for joining, Sanchita ji. Thank you for joining, Malti Mataji. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for joining.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, beautiful Radha stuff and the Kirtan. That's amazing. It's always so beautiful to hear
Yes,
the Radha stuff. Hare
this
Krishna, very beautifully done, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, it's so beautiful. We just remembering we had Radhastami just a week back, and we thought like we should sing this beautiful song. um, Always glorifying Radharani. And
Definitely.
it reminds me that Prabhupada used to say, like, when we offer anything to Krishna, we should first offer it to Radharani and ask Radharani to just offer it to Krishna. And when when it is going through the hands of Radharani to Krishna, Krishna will never refuse. So so one of the important things is when Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam, Yome Bhakta Prayachiti Tadaham Pakyahopahiritam Asnami Prayatatmana. When Krishna says, if one offers me with love and devotion, a leaf, a flower, fruit, or water, I will accept it. But this flower, fruit, or leaf, water, we can first offer it to Radharani and just pray to Radharani, please offer this to Krishna, Radharani, and give us Krishna Bhakti. And Prabhupada says that when Radharani recommends a devotee to Krishna, Krishna can never say no. He will always accept. So just like how we can give it to a mother and just tell mother, can you please give it to father? And when mother tells the father, your son has given this, it's even more relishing to the father and so pleasing to the father. And so Krishna is our eternal father. As long as we have this life, we always have our parents, Matru Deva Bhava, Pitru Deva Bhava. But Krishna Bhagavan says in Bhagavad Gita, Pitaham asya jagato mata data pitamaha vedyam pavitram omkara riksamara juneva. I am the father and mother of this entire universe, of not just human beings, but all the living entities. So it's very important that we develop that personal relationship, and remembering this Gita slokas is so helpful because it helps us to develop a personal relationship with Krishna. When Krishna says that he is our eternal father, and when he says, Mamaivam sa jiva bhuta, sanatana, manashasana, indriyani, prakriti, sani karishati, where he's saying that all of us, we are part and parcel of Krishna. How beautiful is it? Because in some of the traditions, it's always said like, you are a sinner. But here you can see that Krishna is saying that you are part and parcel of me. You are divine. We are all divine. We are all Atma, Jivatmas, and all the Jivatmas, we belong to the Paramatma. So we have to have that realization that many people say, like, I was just talking to somebody from another tradition, and they were saying, well, in our tradition, you can just go and confess. And if you're guilty of something, you can go and confess. And so, but the guilt is always there, even though you're going and confess. But he was asking, like in Sanatan Dharma, in Hinduism, you have something like going and confessing. I said, yeah, definitely. There is a way in which you approach Krishna, and you can approach the spiritual master, and you can ask for forgiveness, because we are all in the material world. As soon as we're born, Krishna Bhagavan says we are under the control of this Maya. Prakriti kriya manani gunai karmani sharvashaha ahankara vimudatma kartahimiti manyate, where we just like puppets in the hands of the material nature. But that material nature is in the hands of Krishna. Maya jakshena prakriti sujesa saracharam. Hetunanena kaunteya jagat viparivartite. So since everything is prakriti is making us dance like puppets, and there are many things which we do not want to, but we happen to do it. And Arjuna asks this, like, why are we being compelled to do so many things? Because we are all under the conditions, under this material nature. But that's in the hands of Krishna. So we can always surrender to Krishna. And that's a way in which we confess to Krishna. We tell, like, whatever we had done, Krishna, any kind of sinful things or any kind of things we confess, we surrender to Krishna. And that's why Krishna Bhagavan says in Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Saranam Braja Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo Mokshisyami Masujaha. Abandon all varieties of religion and surrender unto me, and I will deliver you from all sinful reactions. Don't fear. So Krishna is here directly. The Supreme Lord himself is saying that, yes, there is not only confessing, but there is also a surrender. That is just not about, we can always confess, and we can also at the same time, we can also surrender to Krishna. Krishna, I have done a mistake, kindly forgive me for all these anarthas, but kindly please keep me in your Krishna Bhakti. And then we pray to Radharani also, please help us in our Krishna Bhakti. So in that way, we confess to Krishna and we surrender to Krishna, and we chant the names of Krishna to purify our mind. Because as long as We are not purified as long as we are not chanting. We are always being conditioned on this material nature. So chanting helps us to purify. Chanting helps us to whatever things, if you're feeling, somebody is feeling guilt and they have to confess, they not only be, but we have a process. It's not about just confessing, but also to see how we can overcome this thing by constantly chanting the name, constantly purifying ourselves, and constantly being in the association of devotees. In that way, we overcome this because the friend was saying, like, we, even though we confess, the guilt is still there. Yeah, I said, like, yeah, it takes time to transform yourself. We have the story of the hippies, right? In US, all those hippies, they were like, we had real-time stories when the hippies, they followed Prabhupada. They were into drugs, they were into intoxication, they used to take everything, at that point of time. But slowly they transformed themselves. It's not a one night wonder, but slowly they transformed themselves. And I heard directly from them when I was in Soho temple, like how they used to be. One of the Mataji, she said, like, how I used to pass by, we used to take drugs at the time, and I was used to pass by Prabhupada and used to listen to this lecture. And then slowly I started coming to the temple, and today she's one of a senior devotee, completely transformed. So it's just not about confessing, but it's about transforming our lives. It's about slowly making those steps towards spirituality. Otherwise, if it's just about confessing and all that, then we will continue keeping doing the same thing again and again. But it's all about taking the next steps. How do we confess? But again, then how do we make sure that we don't engage and continue doing the same thing? That's by purifying ourselves. That's by engaging in devotional service. That's why it is so important, the devotional service, because only when we get completely absorbed and engaged in devotional service, only then we can just transform our lives. So I just wanted to just share that, because that was just a discussion I had with a friend who was slowly getting into his con and Hare Krishna movement, and he's slowly started chanting. Someone from another religious tradition, and I happened to meet him, and I given him a nice gift of a chanting beads, and he started chanting. But he was asking on behalf of another friend, how do we reconcile when we make some sinful thing. Um, so on that note, I just want to, with your permission, I just wanted to dive into KrishnaBook. Please let me know when once you can see. Just a minute. Okay. So last week we covered Krishna returning to the gopis, returns to the gopis. I really wanted actually Ramnath Prabhu to be part of the book, where the one which you're talking about, Rasa dance. So as we know, the gopis were having so much of lamentation. They were praying, and they were just, they had tears. They were asking everyone all over the place. They were asking the plants. They were asking the trees. They were asking the animals. They were asking the deers around where they were seeing Krishna. And finally, and they were like angry at the same time. They were sad at the same time. They were like having mixed emotions. And finally, Krishna returns to the gopis, and then that's when he begins to explain about, he again, once again, he he's there reciprocating, because Krishna is always reciprocating. As we know, the gopis had prayed to Katyayani to have Krishna as their husband, and Krishna appears, and because of their pride that they have Krishna with them, so Krishna vanishes from there, and then because he wants to teach them about that we should never have this pride. And then again, Krishna once again returns to the gopis. And as we can see, some of the details that we discussed about 16,000 gopis, and out of 60,000 gopis, 180 are most prominent. But then I think, like as we said, it's so important that these topics are only to be discussed with the association of devotees, because in the material world, because our consciousness is so materially contaminated, we start looking at everything from the same lens of the material world. So topics which are spiritual, like the rasa dance with the gopis, they're supposed to be discussed only with the devotees. And I feel fortunate that I'm in the association of the devotees to cover these kind of topics, these very, very deep topics. Even the gurus, they discuss only when after they gone through certain level with the devotees. So here we can see like how Krishna is also reciprocating. Krishna is also, and there is a personal conversation. It's God is not someone is like a formless God. There is a form we call Bhagavan. Bhagavan means someone, a supreme Lord with all six opulences. And here you can see such a beautiful personal relationship that Krishna is always reciprocating. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Ananyas chintayanto ma ye jana paryupashate tesham nityabhyuktanam yogashemam vahamyam. So when you are engaged in devotional service, as the gopis are so much engaging in devotional service towards Krishna and so much missing towards Krishna, and Krishna is also reciprocating their love. So Krishna is saying, my dear friends, persons who simply reciprocate the loving devotees' dealings of the other party are just like Merkin. So as you remember last week, we were just asking like where the gopis are asking a question to Krishna, like what kind of a person, which kind of a class does he come under? Is he someone who's always just reciprocating their feelings? Or is he like someone who's just, the three classes of one who completely, the three classes of men, one class only receives, one class reciprocates, and even the lover is contrary, and the third class are neither contrary nor answers, so they are just neutral. They don't neither have they are neither against nor favorable also. So even if you see in the material world, in our college life, you see in all kind of things, right? Some people will receive all the love, but there's no reciprocation. Some people are like, even if the other person doesn't care, we just go and reciprocate because she like the person so much. And some people are like so extremely contrary. Some people are just like totally maintaining a balance. They neither are so much into it, or they just keep away from everything. So Krishna is just saying like this kind of dealings of give and take is something like a mercantile love. So that's not the way it should supposed to be. But Krishna also reciprocates towards the end. He says like, the kind of a love that the gopis show towards Krishna, says like, how can he repay the continuous love that the gopis have? So we have to keep in mind that when we are chanting the holy names of Krishna, when we are always doing some devotional service for Krishna, we can take from this example that Krishna is also feeling that kind of reciprocation. He's like, this devotee is doing so much for me. So how do I reciprocate to this devotee? How do I make sure he's completely progressing in his bhakti life? So here we can see like the feelings of Krishna towards Gopikas. It's like he's saying it is impossible to repay you or show enough gratitude for your love. Therefore, please be satisfied by your pious activities. You have displayed exemplary attraction for me, overcoming the greatest difficulties arising from family connection. Please be satisfied with your exemplary character. So here Krishna is also reciprocating. He's not like love is one way where the gopis are just showing their love towards Krishna, but Krishna is also saying like, how do I repay for so much of a love? Because they are just giving up everything for the sake of Krishna, for just to be with Krishna. So that's the kind of a love that they have. And this is what Krishna consciousness is all about. Krishna consciousness is not about praying to Krishna for some kind of a material benefit. Krishna consciousness is to elevate ourselves to a much higher level. As Krishna says to Arjuna, like, these three gunas which are mentioned in the Vedas, and rise above all these three gunas, Krishna says like that. So here the Krishna consciousness or chanting the holy names of Krishna is to basically take ourselves to the level of Suddha Sattva Guna, more than all these three modes of material nature, so that we are completely in Krishna Bhakti. And that way, unlike the demigods who promise so many material benefit, but Krishna is actually reciprocating by offering something much more valuable, much more deeper than anyone else, any demigod can offer. He's simply saying like, by just engaging in Krishna Bhakti, he wants all of us to go back to Krishna Loka, go back and be with Krishna. Just like how he is telling the gopis are all wonderful associates of Krishna coming from the spiritual world, and some of the gopis are sages who have come from the earlier Treta Yuga, from the time when Lord Ramchandra was there. So you can imagine like how elevated all the gopis are. And from this rasa dance, you can see like how Krishna is also willing to come forward and have this engage in such a beautiful, loving relationship with the gopis. And these kind of beautiful divine topics are for us to elevate our lives to go to that level of Krishna Bhakti, that instead of just craving for small material things, engage ourselves in this blissful world of Krishna Bhakti, to spend time with Krishna. The one of the most beautiful thing I like about Dhruva Maharaj is that Dhruva Maharaj, he, at the instance of Narada telling him, giving him this mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudeva, and then he goes into the forest and meditates on Krishna. But at the same time, at the end of this chanting, when Krishna appears in front of him and he asks, like, what does he want? And what boon does he want? And Dhruva Maharaj says, like, after seeing you, I'm totally satisfied. I don't have any other desire. And I feel like I've been actually praying all the way for broken glass pieces when I diamond like you in front of me. So because we don't have the taste for Krishna Bhakti, we are craving for all kind of material things. But when we elevate ourselves, Vesaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinaha rasavarjam rasopasya param drisva nivartate. When we elevate ourselves, when we get the taste for Krishna Bhakti, only then we can feel the blissful joy that we have with Krishna Bhakti. So till then, we should always endeavor and continue in our Krishna Bhakti in the association of devotees, waiting for the reciprocation from Krishna. So here we just moving into the next chapter, which is going to be chapter 33, description of the Rasa dance. Everybody can hear me, right? I just want to just make sure.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sanchini. Chapter number 33, description of the Rasa dance. We will, I hope it's okay that we can continue. I know Ramnath Prabhu is not there for today. I'm sure there must be some reason why Prabhuji couldn't make it. So we'll just cover as much as we can in this chapter. This is quite a long chapter. Description of the Rasa dance. Thus, hearing the Supreme Personal, I would like to just do my mantra. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. He Krishna Karna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopi Shah Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Jai Radha Radhe. Thus, hearing the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna speaking to pacify them, the gopis became very much pleased. They became completely relieved of the great suffering of separation, not only by hearing the words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but also by touching his hands and legs. After this, the Supreme Personality of Godhead began his Rasa dance. A dance in the midst of many girls is called the Rasa dance. So Krishna began to dance among the most beautiful and fortunate girls within the three worlds. The gopis of Vrindavan, who were so attracted to him, danced with Krishna hand in hand. So we can just, we're just starting off about the Rasa dance. So it's a continuation. First Krishna was there with the gopis, and later he disappears and then again appears for the joy of the gopis. And now we can see that the gopis are engaging, Krishna is engaging in the Rasa dance with them. Krishna's Rasa dance should never be compared to any kind of material dance, such as a ball dance or a society dance. The Rasa dance is a completely spiritual performance. In order to establish this fact, Krishna, the supreme mystic, expanded himself into many forms and stood beside each gopi. Placing his hands on the shoulders of the gopis on both sides of him, he began to dance in the midst. The mystic expansions of Krishna were not perceived by the gopis because Krishna appeared alone to each of them. Each gopi thought that Krishna was dancing with her alone. Above that wonderful dance flew many airplanes carrying the denizens of the heavenly planets, who were very eager to see the beautiful, wonderful dance of Krishna with the gopis. The Gandharvas and the Kinnaras began to sing, and accompanied by their respective wives, all the Gandharvas began to shower flowers on the dancers. So we can see that this Rasa dance, the most important, like as normally in front of the books, they keep a disclaimer, before they start off with the book. So similarly, before the Rasa dance, before we start discussing about the Rasa dance, one of the important thing we have to keep in mind that this Rasa dance is not to be compared with anything at all from the material world. It's completely spiritual, and the Rasa dance is completely on a very on the platform of bhakti. It's on a spiritual platform. And not to be compared any kind of things from the material world. In today's world, there are many gurus who call themselves as mystics. But here you can see that Krishna is the supreme mystic. He's like the mystic of all the mystics. And in Bhagavad Gita, we can see that at the end of Bhagavad Gita, when Sanjaya, after listening to all the beautiful narration of Krishna about all the different yogas, Sanjaya says, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna Yatra Pardo Danurdara Tatra Shri Vijayo Bhutri Dhruva Nitirmatir Mama, where Krishna, where he says, wherever the Krishna is there, the master of all the mystic. He is the supreme mystic. And wherever there's the devotee like Arjuna, there's always going to be victory and auspiciousness. So this lesson is so important. That final conclusion or the summary of what Sanjaya feels at the end of Bhagavad Gita, we should always keep in mind that no matter how many things are there opposing us in our lives, we should always remember that on our side we have Krishna, the supreme mystic, who can turn around any situation. He can turn around anything in our lives. In fact, many times we do not know, as devotees, we do so many things, but we never know how much Krishna has been always protecting us. Maybe we don't realize enough how Krishna is constantly keeping us in the bhakti life so that we don't get distracted and entangle ourselves in the material life. We do not know. Krishna must be doing so many things. Many times when we are even, driving and we land up with small things which happen, maybe a small tiny accident but we never know what actually would have supposed to happen and how Krishna must have saved our lives. Many times it does happen. And even I used to miss sometimes, something which could be really, a major one. And sometimes that make me realize, oh my God, Krishna you really save us so much. So like that, the most important thing when as we're progressing in Krishna Bhakti is also to have those beautiful realizations that Krishna is always there, and he's always protecting us. And that's the reason why we always keep in contact with Krishna by always chanting his holy names. Because once we chant the holy names of Krishna, Krishna is already there in the chant. So we are directly in contact with Krishna. So here the gopis are engaging with Krishna, the supreme mystic, and placing his hands on the shoulders of the gopis on both sides, he began to dance in the midst. So you can see the rasa dance now unfolding, and how the rasa dance is happening in the between, with all the gopis and with each and every gopi. And we can see this. I think if you remember, there's a picture somewhere. I think even in Manor. On upstairs in Prabhupada's room, I think there's one picture where you have Krishna dancing with all the gopis. And the beautiful part of it is Krishna is expanding himself and like a cloning almost, like with each and every gopis, there was Krishna. But each and every gopi was thinking that Krishna is only with her. So that's the beauty of Krishna, how he is. And each gopi thinks that Krishna was only there. And all that about that, and we understand from this divine pastimes, and we can just sometimes, after listening to the Krishna Katha, we can bring to a mind how beautiful that scene must have been, where Krishna is dancing with all the gopis, and we can see that in the sky, all the denizens, all these Gandharvas and Kinnaras, they're just going on those beautiful airplanes and watching this divine Leela unfolding, where Krishna is dancing with the gopis. And as you can see, even the Gandharvas, they're showering flowers, because this is something which is a delight even for the Gandharvas. It's a delight even for the demigods to see Krishna, because they don't get an opportunity like this. Because Krishna is replicating or doing the things which actually happen in Krishna Loka, and the same things are happening here in Vrindavan. As the gopis and the Krishna danced together, a very blissful musical sound was produced from the tinkling of the bells, ornaments, and bangles. So we can see sometimes, when we were children, or even when many of you would have experienced when we are listening, when we're watching a Bharatanatyam, or we are listening from Kuchipudi and things like that. Even today, we find the dancers, they tie the bells to or ornaments to their feet, and they dance around the anklets and things like that. So we can see that everything is coming from Dwapara Yuga. You can see here when they're dancing, the tinkling of the bells and the ornaments. It appeared that Krishna was a greenish sapphire locket in the midst of golden necklace decorated with valuable stones. While Krishna and the gopis danced, they displayed extraordinary bodily features. The movement of the legs, they're placing their hands on one another. The movement of their eyebrows, they're smiling. The movement of the gopis' breasts, gopis' clothes and earrings, their cheeks, their hair with flowers. As Krishna and the gopis sang and danced, these combined to appear like clouds, thunder, snow, and lightning. So a beautiful description of how beautiful the dance was going on and about the movements actually. So we all know about some of these Bollywood moves and stuff like that, those kind of things. But actually, if you see, like you said, we discussed earlier, this material world and everything, all these dances, everything is nothing but a perfect perverted reflection of what exactly happened in the spiritual world. So the original dance is what is happening over here, where Krishna is dancing with the gopis and with the beautiful sounds and the moves that they were making. And you can see even now when you see Kathakali, the Kerala dance and things like that. It's got so much to do with the movement of the eyes and eyebrows and things like that. And it used to be amazed at, if you remember some of these dances and all those dances in Bharatanatyam and all that, they're actually nothing but a display of a story that's happened in the ancient times. So these are all pulled out because, they're just trying to enact. The dance is nothing but enacting a beautiful story in a nice dance form. And the same time, this is exactly what is happening over there in Vrindavan. You can see that the gopis and Krishna are dancing and how beautiful it is. Like this, it was appearing like clouds and thunder, snow and lightning. You can imagine, because we have to keep in mind when Krishna appeared also, all the planets started aligning themselves in the most favorable situation. So you can imagine the whole nature is, Prakriti is in the hands of Krishna. So when Krishna is kind of enacting this beautiful divine Leelas, all the Prakriti is also kind of like doing this wonderful display, the snow and the lightning. Even now we can see like when after a beautiful rain, there's a nice rainbow and things like that appearing. This is nothing but the divine splendor of Krishna. So when all these things happening in the material world, the divine Leela of Krishna, can you imagine what would have happened when Krishna himself was there in Vrindavan among the gopis? How beautifully it must have been there. Krishna's bodily features appeared like a group of clouds. The gopis' songs were like thunder. Their beauty appeared to be just like lightning in the sky, and the drops of perspiration visible on their faces appeared like falling snow. In this way, the gopis and the Krishna fully engaged in dancing. So you can imagine how beautiful the dancing must have been, how beautiful, how melodious, and how nice rhythmically must have been happening. So all these things are coming from the spiritual world. And you can see that like how we get tired with, doing these beautiful dances. And here you can see the drops of perspiration are appearing even on the faces of the gopis. The necks of the gopis became tinted with red due to the desire to enjoy Krishna and more. So you can see that in the spiritual world, any dance that we do, we're never satisfied. We want to do even more and more, right? Early in the morning when you go to Manor, and in the Manor temple, and when you're dancing at 7 o'clock, it just goes on and on and on. You never get tired. You may perspire a bit, but still it's always so joyful when the devotees are just dancing to the heart's content. So because wherever we are singing the Hare Krishna Sankirtana and dancing, it is Vrindavan over there. And that's a kind of a faith, and that's a kind of a belief that we should have, that wherever the devotees are having this beautiful kirtan and sankirtan, that is Vrindavan, and that is where Krishna is. Golokara Premadane Harinama Sankirtana, that this Hare Krishna Mahamantra is not coming from the material world. It's not a material sound, but this beautiful spiritual sound of Hare Krishna Mahamantra is coming directly from the spiritual world. That is why it is so joyful. So to satisfy the gopis, Krishna began to clap his hands in time with the singing. So you can imagine, like, how we clap the sing when we are singing some songs. So Krishna is clapping to the singing. Actually, the whole world is full of Krishna singing, but it's appreciated in different ways by different kind of living entities. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Ye yatamam prapajyante tam stataiva bhajamyaham. So Krishna Bhagavan is saying, according to the level of surrender, this is a sloka from Bhagavad Gita, Ye yatamam prapajyante tam stataiva bhajamyaham. Krishna is saying, according to your level of surrender, I also reciprocate accordingly. So we have to keep that in mind, that even if we offer the flower, that Krishna is saying that he also reciprocates to the level of surrender. So even if you take one small baby step of offering a flower to Krishna, that itself, it starts um, getting reciprocation from Krishna, that Krishna is always reciprocating. Krishna is dancing and every living entity is also dancing. But there is a difference between the dancing in the spiritual world and in the material world. This is expressed by the author of Chaitanya Charitamrita, who says that the master dancer is Krishna and everyone else is his servant. So this is the mood that all the devotees here, right? In Krishna Loka and people who follow Hare Krishna movement, the whole mood or the whole consciousness is that we are part and parcel of Krishna and we engage in the service of Krishna. We are always serving Krishna. That is our relationship with Krishna. Because normally when you say a servant in the material world is considered like a servant, like it's considered like, oh, you're just being a servant. But in the spiritual world, saying that you are a servant of a guru, a servant of Krishna, that is the highest elevated position that you can think of. There can't be anything more than that, because you're serving directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There can't be anything more beautiful than that, more auspicious than that. So here, everyone is trying to imitate Krishna's dancing. Those who are actually in Krishna consciousness respond rightly to the dancing of Krishna. They do not try to dance independently, but those in the material world try to imitate Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The living entities are dancing under the direction of Krishna's Maya and are thinking that they are equal to Krishna. But this is not a fact. That's what happens, isn't it? When you're living in the material world and you're dancing for any different events and all that, you always think about yourself. You never think you're doing this dance for satisfaction. You think you are the proprietor and you are dancing it for your own joy. But in the spiritual world, it's a totally a different level of consciousness. You're dancing, you're doing everything for the pleasure of Krishna. But this is not a fact. In Krishna consciousness, this misconception is absent. For a person in Krishna consciousness knows that Krishna is the Supreme Master and everyone else is the servant. Mama evamsa jiva bhuta sanatana. That we are all part and parcel of Krishna, but we are not the same as Krishna. We are always in the servitor. We are always in the position of serving Krishna. One has to dance to please Krishna, not to imitate or attempt to become equal to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The gopis wanted to please Krishna, and therefore, as Krishna sang, they they responded and encouraged him by saying, well done, well done. So here we can see like the gopis are giving us that direction on how we can progress in our bhakti life. They were always doing things to please Krishna. And so when Krishna is engaging in the rasa dance, they're encouraging him, saying that well done, well done. Sometimes they presented beautiful music for his pleasure and he responded by praising their singing. So when we were learning harmonium also, our teacher, Prem Sankeetan Prabhu, I feel so inspired. It's so beautifully Prabhuji says, like, see, and the way he tells about so passionately about Krishna, I just get goosebumps sometimes. He tells, like, when we're playing harmonium also, he says, like, see how beautifully Krishna has designed his fingers also. Like, we have this whole harmonium, such a big harmonium, but how our fingers can just go around from one middle octave to the other place, and then you can just come back like this. And he was telling how beautifully Krishna has designed even our fingers also to be playing the music. And you can see, like, whether you're playing a flute or whether you're playing harmonium, how nicely beautiful Krishna has designed this even fingers also to be able to do this entire tune with the fingers. So these are realizations in the spiritual world. You have to not just like, okay, I'm singing and I'm enjoying, I'm doing a great job singing, but trying to understand, oh my God, Krishna, how beautifully you designed these fingers. And I'm able to just go all over the place on the harmonium and able to just do all these things just with one hand. So as you can see, when you play the harmonium, the other hand is, just pumping, and here you're using this hand only for doing the finger. But you can see how nicely the fingers have been arranged and how beautiful Krishna has given us. And Krishna has given a beautiful gift to all the devotees. Like some devotees, they're good at singing. Some devotees, they're good at maybe, doing service, different thing like Krishna Katha. Some devotees are very good at serving Krishna in so many different ways. As you can see in this Hare Krishna movement, in the Krishna Janmashtami also, we've seen each devotees are engaged in so many different ways to please Krishna. And so when we are engaged in Krishna, as you can see, like some of the devotees also, they do so many things for Krishna that, they're driving the van on one hand, they just playing the mridanga on one hand, and then they're going into the kitchen and cooking on one hand. So when we are also engaged in Krishna Bhakti, we can see ourselves rolling into different roles of, taking part in the kitchen or going and helping somewhere in the Goshala and things like that. So all these things are so joyful, and all these things, why we're doing this to please Krishna. But through these divine leelas, we get more knowledge, we get more inspiration, seeing the gopis. This is how we have to engage in our life, to always to please Krishna, for the pleasure of Krishna. And that is something which I have to just keep in our mind. If you see the whole of Bhagavad Gita, and if you think about Krishna Katha and all, it's all about changing your consciousness to Krishna consciousness. That's the reason Prabhupada so beautifully he put it as International Society of Krishna Consciousness. Because even if you take the whole Bhagavad Gita, Krishna didn't give deadly weapons to Arjuna to fight on the battlefield. All he did was he changed his consciousness. Arjuna was so ego consciousness. I can't fight. I can't do this. I can't go and kill. They'll become this. I will become this. I will do this. I will become sinful. Everything he was I. And the whole Bhagavad Gita where Krishna was telling everything was to just change his consciousness, that do your divine duty as an offering to me. Do everything for the pleasure of me. Do everything to please me. Do everything as an offering to me. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu ma manusmara yudjasha mai arpito manobudhi mame vaisya samsaya. Always think of me, Krishna's Bhagavan says in Bhagavad Gita, always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time carrying out doing what you're doing, your divine duty. With your mind fixed on me in this principle, so you will always feel attached to Krishna. So this is the message that Krishna is trying to, and in the gopis, as you can see, they're enjoying this beautiful, blissful, divine pastime by always spending time with Krishna. When some of the gopis became very tired from dancing and moving their bodies, they placed their hands on the shoulders of Krishna, Sri Krishna. Then their hair loosened and the flowers fell to the ground. When they placed their hands on Krishna's shoulders, they became overwhelmed by the fragrance of his body, which emanated from the lotus, other aromatic flowers, and the pulp of sandalwood. They became filled with the attraction for him, and they began to kiss him. Some gopis touched Krishna cheek to cheek, and Krishna began to offer them chewed betel nuts from his mouth, which they accepted with great pleasure by kissing. By accepting this betel nut, the gopis spiritually advanced. So we can see like how the Krishna, how beautiful, how fortunate they are, the gopis. They were dancing with Krishna, and when they were like so tired, they're keeping the hands on Krishna. We can imagine how beautiful they must have been present, because Krishna doesn't have a material body like us. Krishna's body and our body, the difference is completely transcendently. Whole body is completely spiritual. For us, we have a material body, and then we have a spiritual, we have a Jivatma, the Atma inside is spiritual. But outside, with this whole gross body is completely material. But in the case of Krishna, everything is transcendental, everything is spiritual, including his body. So we can imagine like when we also get tired, we perspire and we make a certain order comes from our body, right? So that's the reason why we put a body spray and things like that. But here you can see Krishna is dancing with the gopis. But after dancing also, you can see that the fragrance that's coming out of the body, because Krishna is the original, the supreme, the spiritual Bhagavan Sri Krishna. So you can see that such an aromatic flowers and the pulp of sandalwood, the kind of a smell that must be emanating from him. And how fortunate that the gopis were touching cheek to cheek with Krishna. So, and you can see such a personal reciprocation that Krishna is giving them betel nuts, and they were just taking it. And so anything that Krishna gives and then we accept it, that's the way in which we spiritually advance. When in this material world, if somebody offers something, it could be material, and if we take that, we may get more entangled in more material things. But anything that's offered by Krishna, it is something which is extremely spiritual. The gopis became tired after long singing and dancing. Krishna was dancing beside them, and to elevate the fatigue, they took Sri Krishna's hand and placed it on the raised breast. Krishna's hand as well as the breast of the gopis are eternally auspicious. Therefore, when they combined, both of them became spiritually enhanced. The gopis so enjoyed the company of Krishna, the husband of the goddess of fortune, that they forgot that they had any other husbands in the world. And upon being embraced by the arms of Krishna and dancing and singing with him, They forgot everything. Srimad Bhagavatam thus described the beauty of the gopis while they were rasa dancing with Krishna. They were lotus flowers over both their ears, and their faces were decorated with sandalwood pulp. They wore tilaka, and there were drops of perspiration on their smiling mouths. From their feet came the tinkling sounds of the ankle bells and bangles. The flowers within the hair were falling to the lotus feet of Krishna, and he was very satisfied. So Prabhupada has given such a beautiful description in Krishna Katha. We almost feel that we can see this dance happening in front of our eyes. It is like you can see that how the gopis are dancing with Krishna, with the rasa dance, and how they're placing their hands on Krishna's shoulders, and when they get tired, and how Krishna is giving them betel leaves. And then here we can see how is Krishna, just like how it looks like as if it's happening in like how it happens in the material world. But like as I said, everything is spiritual that's happening between Krishna and the gopis. And as they are engaged in this rasa dance, we can see that the gopis are feeling so much of a joy, and at the same time they get so spiritually enhanced. They were enjoying directly with Krishna, the goddess of the fortune, and because they were enjoying in the company of Krishna, they completely forgotten, because we had to keep in mind that all these gopis, they had a family. Actually, they were back home, they had a family, they had husbands, they had children, they had everyone. But leaving all of them, they're coming here and dancing with Krishna, and they're completely lost in this world. Because all of us also sometimes, you feel like very famous dancers, music, like even you take the Beatles, right? The Beatles were so popular. They were so popular that when people were attending one of these rock bands or the beautiful shows of the Beatles, they were completely lost in a different world. But that's a material world. And many people, because of these rock bands and all that, they would be indulging in various kind of intoxicant and things like that. But here, it's a different kind of intoxication. This is intoxication with so much of love towards Krishna that they have completely forgotten about these material things. They've forgotten about the material relationships, because that's what happens when we are completely engaged in bhakti life. We do not, the other things seem like very, very trivial, just like I was giving an example. If you're a small child who's having a lollipop, if you suddenly give them a nice rasgulla, if you give them a nice Ferrero Rocher, and once they have the taste of the Ferrero Rocher, they're not going to go back to the lollipop. They'll say, no, I want a Ferrero Rocher because I have a taste over it. It's so beautiful, a rasgulla or a gulab jam. So similarly, the gopis are so elevated. They have a taste of Krishna Bhakti. They have a taste of the association of being with Krishna Bhakti. So they don't have the taste for all these material things. So even that they have so much, but it is exactly opposite for us. We are so entangled in our material life that even though we want to engage in our Krishna Bhakti, there's so many pulling factors. They're pulling like, oh, you have to do this because we have so many duties that we have. But some devotees, they do so much of their best to always trying to balance this life. And in that also, there is so much of sukriti that you get, and so much of austerity that you're doing, that where you, in spite of having a busy family life, you're still trying to take some time for hearing Krishna Katha. You're still taking some time to engage in the association of devotees and trying to do service for Krishna. And as I said earlier, Krishna mentioned, Ye yatamam prapadyante tam stataiva bhajamiham. And Krishna is watching all these things. Krishna is taking a note of every small service that we're doing for Krishna. Bhagavan Prabhupada says, Krishna has got an accountant. Prabhupada used to say he's got an accountant and he's keeping track of every service that you're doing. Otherwise, how is he saying that Ananya Sintayanto ma ye jana paryupashate tesham nityabhyuktanam yogashaima vahami? How can he reciprocate our feelings if he's not keeping track of all the devotional things that we're doing? So every small thing that we're doing, he's taking a note of it, and he's reciprocating. As you can see, this gopi dance, the gopis actually, some of the gopis are sages coming from Treta Yuga, coming from the time of Ramachandra, Lord Ramachandra. And Lord Ramachandra at that time says, in this yuga, it's only going to be Sita, and I will be in your association. You will have my association when I come in the form of Krishna. So here you can see that Bhagavan Sri Krishna is reciprocating. Earlier, when he was taking the avatar of Ram, the gopis, the sages have requested, they've always wanted, they desired, and that desire Krishna is fulfilling in this yuga, in this Dwapara yuga. Such is the mood of reciprocation that he will never forget. That he is reciprocating even in the other yuga. Imagine how many thousands of years have happened ever since Treta Yuga to Dwapara Yuga, and still Krishna is not forgotten that he's still reciprocating. So that I think we should keep in mind. Just like how our karmas coming from so many lifetimes. Similarly, even the things, the good deeds that we're doing, or the bhakti that we're doing also is being carried forward actually. That's why Krishna tells Arjuna, Arjuna, whatever bhakti life that you're practicing in this life, when you take the next life, it continues. You'll be born in a very nice, auspicious family. You'll be born in a nice, maybe a devotee family where you can continue your Krishna bhakti. So that is the level of, so that happens. And that's where Krishna is always saying that, he's always reciprocating. And we can see here how beautiful it must have been that the gopis, when they were dancing over there, there were lotus flowers. So both the ears and the faces were decorated with sandal pulp. Can you imagine how beautiful they must be looking at that time with sandal pulp? The flowers within the hair were falling to the lotus feet of Krishna because they were dancing with Krishna. So all the flowers were falling at the feet of Krishna. You can just bring to light how beautiful it must have been. As stated in the Brahma Samhita, all these gopis are expansions of Krishna's pleasure potency. We never knew about all these things. We always, when we were kids, we were told, yeah, Krishna is dancing with the gopis, but we don't know like who are the gopis actually. We were just thinking about. But here you can find that the gopis are expansions of Krishna's pleasure potency. So you have one set of gopis who are expansions of Radharani. The inner pleasure potency of Krishna is Radharani, and that is the expansion of the gopis are expansions of that. And some of them are actually coming from the Treta Yuga, the sages who are in the company of Ramachandra. Touching their bodies with his hand and looking at their pleasing eyes, Krishna enjoyed the gopis exactly as a child enjoys playing with the reflection of his body in the mirror. When Krishna touched the different part of the bodies, the gopis felt surcharged with spiritual energy. They could not adjust their loosened clothes, although they tried to keep them adjusted properly. Their hair and garments became scattered and their ornaments loosened as they forgot themselves in the company of Krishna. So we can see from this particular paragraph, like, the gopis are like so lost in this blissful engagement of rasa dance with Krishna that they have completely forgotten about, how they are dressed up and things like that. You can find the flowers are falling off and the hair and the garments were scattered and things like the ornaments. It does happen, isn't it? Even when you are doing dances, like sometimes your clothes are not in the same time. Sometimes you could find like, your, some of your dresses are loosened up or sometimes something must have happened and things like that. So here you can find, and because the gopis are expansion, so Krishna is enjoying this pleasure potency. So when Krishna wants to enjoy in this material world, he just expands himself as Radharani, and from that expands. So he's enjoying the company of his own pleasure potency over here, because it's in a totally a spiritual platform, totally. While Krishna was enjoying the company of the gopis in the rasa dance, the astonished demigods and their wives gathered in the sky. The moon, being afflicted with a sort of lust, began to watch the dance and became stunned with wonder. The gopis had prayed to the goddess Katyayani to have Krishna as her husband. Now Krishna was fulfilling their desire by expanding himself in as many forms as they were gopis and enjoying them exactly like a husband. So you can find like so the rasa dance was happening where Krishna was dancing with the gopis, but you can see like the Gandharvas and Kinnaras, they were like showering flowers from the sky. And you can find that even the demigods, and they were like all the Lord Shiva and Brahma and all of them just gathering in the sky and enjoying this rasa dance. And you can find it that even the moon also is beginning to watch, as Krishna says, the splendor of the sun and the splendor of moon are from Krishna. Krishna is the source of everything. So even they are watching in wonder as this beautiful rasa dance. And so again, it's very important to understand the gopis are also praying to Katyayani at that time. Again, their prayers are not material. Their prayers are totally spiritual, to engage themselves again in the pleasure of having Krishna in the company of Krishna, So it is not something like they were praying for some material benefit. They were always praying to have the association of Krishna, to have Krishna as their husband. So it's very difficult to stop our desires. It's very difficult to stop our prayers. But the most important thing as we progress in bhakti life is to how to spiritualize our desires. Like, earlier we say, like, I want to go and watch that particular movie. But as you keep moving towards Krishna Bhakti, you'll be like, oh, I want to watch this beautiful Krishna Bhakti song on the YouTube, or I want to watch this beautiful, I want to hear to this beautiful Krishna Katha. So our desires can't be stopped, but it's all about transforming our desires from material desires to spiritual desires. And that way we'll be very happy. The material desires, no matter how much we try to satisfy, they'll be it's like pouring petrol over the fire and trying to stop it. It will keep on burning and burn more and more and more. But exactly opposite to the spiritual, when you're having a spiritual desires, and when you find Krishna reciprocating, and when you engage yourself in Krishna Bhakti for the pleasure of Krishna, that joy, that bliss is totally on a different elevated platform. It's in a mode of Suddha Sattva Guna, or super goodness. Srila Sukadeva Goswami has remarked that Krishna is self-sufficient. He is called Atmaram. So, sometimes people say, like, when we start chanting this Hare Krishna Mahamantra also is like, well, when we refer to Rama, is it Lord Ram, or which Ram are we talking about? So there's an explanation that it could be Balaram, or we're talking about Atmarama. Over here also, so Krishna's another name is also Atmarama, which means that he's self-sufficient. He doesn't need anything at all. He's completely full by himself. But still, he's reciprocating because of the love that we are showing towards him. He's just reciprocating. But if you take Krishna, he doesn't need the gopis. He doesn't need anything. He's self-sufficient all by himself. But still, he's kind of like always reciprocating the feelings of the gopis that they had for him. Srila Sukadeva Goswami has remarked that Sri Krishna is self-sufficient. He's Atmarama. He doesn't need anyone else for his satisfaction. But because the gopis wanted Krishna as their husband, he fulfilled their desire. When Krishna saw that the gopis were tired from dancing with him, he immediately began to wipe his hands over their faces so that their fatigue would be relieved. In order to reciprocate the kind hospitality of Krishna, the gopis began to look at him lovingly. They were overjoyed with the auspicious touch of the hands of Krishna. Their smiling cheeks shone with beauty, and they began to sing the glories of Krishna with the transcendental pleasure. As pure devotees, the more the gopis enjoyed Krishna's company, the more they became enlightened with his glories. And thus they reciprocated with him. They wanted to satisfy Krishna by glorifying his transcendental pastimes. Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, the master of all masters, and the gopis wanted to worship him for his unusual exhibition of mercy upon them. So we can see that these important points, that Krishna is always self-sufficient, he doesn't need anyone. But we are always worshipping Krishna, and which is for our own this thing, our progress in spiritual life, that when we are, because he is the supreme personality of Godhead. Like, Prabhupada gives this beautiful example. If you take a finger, when your finger is part of you, it has a lot of value. But imagine if I cut my finger and just that finger is just lying over there on the table, it has no value at all. But immediately when that finger becomes part of me, it has a lot of value. I'm able to play, I'm able to eat, I'm able to do so many things. So similarly, when we engage ourselves in material life, that life has no value. But when we are engaged in bhakti life, when we become part and parcel of Krishna, when we understand that we are here to serve Krishna, we have a beautiful relationship with Krishna. And when we engage and we are in contact with Krishna, when we become part of this divine Leela of Krishna, where we are always engaging in chanting these holy names of Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And when we are in contact with Krishna and we become part and parcel of Krishna and Krishna's Leela, then our lives will become more valuable. And that is very important. And Prabhupada gives beautiful analogies where he's talking about a finger, like, a finger has no value. Once it becomes part and parcel of me, then it has a lot of value. So when we engage ourselves in bhakti life and we become servitors of Krishna, then it has a lot of value. Just like So many zeros on a check have no value, but once you put one in before all the zeros on a check, the check suddenly becomes extremely valuable. We don't want to lose it. So similarly, when we engage in a bhakti life, we engage in a chanting life, and then we don't want to lose Krishna. We always want to engage in bhakti life towards Krishna. And here you can see how much of joy the Krishna was also enjoying with the gopis, that when they get tired, Krishna was kind of like even wiping their hands, his hands with on the face over the faces, and how they have been reciprocating as well. This is also joyful, isn't it? Just imagine Krishna doing that so nicely for them. The gopis and Krishna entered the water of Yamuna just to relieve their fatigue from the rasa dance. The lily flower garlands around the necks of the gopis were strewn to priests due to the gopis embracing the body of Krishna. And the flowers were reddish from being smeared with the kunkuma on their breasts. The bumblebees were humming about in order to get honey from the flowers. Krishna and the gopis entered the water of the Yamuna just as the elephants enter a water tank with his many female companions. Both the gopis and Krishna forgot their real identities, playing in the water, enjoying each other's company and reliving the fatigue of rasa dancing. The gopis began to splash water on the body of Krishna, all the while smiling. And Krishna enjoyed this. As Krishna was taking pleasure in the joking words and splashing water, the demigods in the heavenly planets showered flowers. The demigods thus praised the super excellent rasa dance of Krishna, the supreme enjoyer, and his pastimes with the gopis in the water of Yamuna. In today's material world, if somebody dances so beautifully, we get so blown away. Like, we have international ones like Michael Jackson and so many great dancers, isn't it? When they dance, we get so much, oh my God, he's so amazing. He just dances like a dream. But can you imagine the supreme Lord of the universe, supreme Bhagavan Sri Krishna, the Lord of the universe, dancing over there? Can you imagine how beautiful it must have been? How super it must have been, how beautiful it must have been, how melodious it must have been with the singing with the gopis. So the rasa dance is continuing where once the whole thing is over, after the rasa dance is over, now the gopis and the Krishnas have entered into the waters of Yamuna. And even because so from this lila, we can understand that the gopis had the garland of lily flowers, which are strewn around, because of the rasa dance, you can find, like, as they were saying, your body is loosened up and your dresses is completely loosened up a bit and things like that. And they had kunkuma. So all these things will give an idea about how beautifully the gopis must have been dressed at that point of time. And then Krishna and gopis, they were enjoying so beautifully in the water and enjoying each other's company. And because they were a bit tired from the dancing, now they're coming into the water and just reliving. Even all of us also, people who are into swimming and things like that, after like, say, when you're tired and after a long day, when you get into the water, it's just like a water therapy, isn't it? You feel so refreshed. Water is very therapeutic. Like, it's got a real therapy. It's a real therapy where it makes you. So here we can find that the gopis, after the rasa dance, they're coming into the Yamuna river to relieve all their fatigue as well. And how nicely the gopis are doing the splashing water on the body of Krishna, and how Krishna is also reciprocating. And all these things, the divine leelas that are happening out in the rasa dance, and the demigods are just enjoying from the heavenly skies, and how beautifully these things, and they're showering flowers. So you can imagine how beautiful they must be dancing, isn't it? And especially when you are flying in an aeroplane, and then when you see from the top, when you see a beautiful city, when you're landing, we get all excited, isn't it? Wow, it looks so beautiful when you see it. I remember when I was traveling back to my hometown, when we're going on the sea and we just landing onto our city, and I was like, wow, our city looks so beautiful from the top. And we can see this whole beautiful city and all these beautiful buildings. So you can imagine how even the demigods, when they're watching from the heavenly planets, and they were seeing how this beautiful rasa dance is happening of Krishna, and how they must be enchanted with so much of joy seeing this rasa dance. And and also, like, the demigods are at another level, because our eyesight is like, we can't even see just beyond a certain distance. But the demigods, they are totally elevated. That's why you can see that even from the sky, they're just showering the flowers, and they're just watching this super excellent dance, even from such a high level, because they're in a totally different elevated situation. After this, Lord Krishna and the gopis came out of the water and began to stroll along the banks of the Yamuna, where a nice breeze was flowing, carrying the aroma of the different kinds of flowers over the water and the land. While strolling on the banks of the Yamuna, Krishna recited various kinds of poetry. He thus enjoyed the company of the gopis in the soothing moonlight of autumn. So you can see, like, they entered into the water in the Yamuna and they were just dancing and sprinkling water at each other, splashing water at each other. It's so beautiful, because if you remember, all in the material world also we do that, right? When some people get into the, you can see, like, sometimes when people jump into the swimming pool, or whether they just jump into any river and things like that, you do this, this childish thing. You just spray water in each other and you sprinkle on each other and things like that. But everything is happening, like, in this material world is a perfect reflection of what's happening in the spiritual. So here we can see that this is the original way of enjoying what is happening in the spiritual world, which we are trying to imitate in this material world, where Krishna is, the way Krishna is spending with the gopis is what the original joy of how they used to spend in the spiritual world, and which is what we are trying to imitate in this material world. It's the same thing, that the dance is happening and everything is happening, but this is in a different mood of devotion. It's in the mode of serving Krishna. And that's what happens. So even though there could be a dance in the material world, which may get fatigue and we may just, it doesn't lead to anything. But in the spiritual world, when devotees are dancing to glorify Krishna, as you can see in Harinam Sankirtan, a lot of people go for Harinam Sankirtan on the roads, and they're dancing for Krishna and all that. By the end of this thing, maybe they are a bit tired because they've been just going out on the water, but inside they're feeling so much of bliss. They're feeling so much of joy and so much of contentment, so much of satisfaction that they did something which, because this is completely blissful, it's on a spiritual platform. So here we can find this whole rasa dance unfolding, where even though the gopis are spending this beautiful time for Krishna, dancing with Krishna, and after really putting the hands on the shoulders of Krishna and then going into the Yamuna, but all these things are so joyful because they're so kind of like enjoying this blissful time with Krishna, serving Krishna. And Krishna, we can see here that while he comes out of the water and they're taking a stroll, and Krishna even reciting various kind of poetry as well. This is so beautiful, isn't it? So I just wanted to be mindful of the time. It's 9:19 now. I just want to take your advice. Would you want to just continue, or shall we stop over here and continue again for the next session? Amaga Prabhu, Sanchit Mataji, anybody?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I think yes, better we finish it here because it's quite a
Yes.
big one, and
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
we will continue next week.
yeah, definitely. We will stop it here, and it's rasa dance, and it is so joyful that we can always, it should span over a couple of sessions to really enjoy the rasa and how beautiful this whole thing is unfolding. So I just want to stop and like, if there's anything, any kind of realizations, anything that that you want to share, by all means. Anything that you wanted to share from this?
Prabhu, you today the Ramnath Prabhu was not there, but you explained it so like with so much of visuals and so much of like analogies which we could relate to the material one. So it was like nothing more we can add. So it was very blissful to hear.
Thank you. Yeah, I know it's such a challenging, you juggle so many things, and I'm so thankful to you that you take time to come for Krishna Katha. And I always feel so joyful that we always have your support and association. It's always like nectar when we are reciting in the Association of Devotees. So, Radha Sevika Mataji, thank you so much for joining. Anything you want to share about the Rasa dance or this Krishna Katha, please?
Thank you, Prabhu. That was very beautiful.
Thank you, Mataji. Anil Prabhu, thank you for joining. I know you just been joining the last few sessions, but I really want to thank you for taking your time, taking part in this.
Thank you for your hard work. Thank you.
Definitely, Prabhu. So we will end over here, and then next Thursday we'll continue with the Krishna Katha. And I want to just thank you so much for your association. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. These are so confidential pastimes, and like after this, when Krishna leaves, things change. But like how, uh, like it's really blissful to be able to hear this. Not everybody gets a chance, and you know, when we do it like systematically through all his young childhood pastimes, it's more we can absorb in the mood instead of rushing, like as Ramnath Prabhu says, like rushing to these chapters, which are quite intimate.
Absolutely.
We have to understand the mood because here yeah, of course, we have as you mentioned, like cloning aspect. Krishna, everybody feels Krishna is only, every gopi feels he's only there for her, but before this, that Krishna is Bhagwan. I mean, that but other gopis don't realize this, but
Mm,
in the childhood pastimes where he kills all his demons,
mhm.
then Krishna really so shows his power, like how powerful he is to be able to, as a child, to be able to do that. So when we accept him, like doing that, his opulence and his strength, then only it's like it's very purposefully written, like like this, like these. It could have been the like beginning chapters, but it has been first you have to understand the mood that he is Bhagwan. You have to accept that, and then only you go into his intimate pastimes to be able to not contemplate in our lusty with our lusty materialistic perception. So that is how I perceive. And like every time listening to Krishna Katha is so valuable and important because it helps in our chanting. The more we focus, though we have heard it and we hear it so many times, but hearing it again and again, it helps in our chanting to focus more on our chanting. Mm, it's not like earlier in our school days we used to sing the prayers, like Sare Jahan Se Acha, Hindu Sita Hamara, and all those things, and Rashtriya Gan also, and all. But sometimes, as child, not knowing the meaning of it, but to understand all the 16 syllables of the Hare Krishna mantra, it's very important to delve deep into the pastime, so that for all the individual 16 syllables, we have that you know attraction to be able to chanting it more puritically, more, with more consciousness.
Absolutely.
That is, yeah, that's all. Like when we hear all these Maharajas, Swamijis, they speaking, this is what they focus on. This chanting, we can do it like mechanically, keep on going, but this focus on chanting comes from listening to Krishna Katha. So that's
Yes.
very important.
I think you rightly said the wonderful things. Actually, what you said is absolutely true, because sometimes our chanting can become very mechanical if there's no element of a devotional mood or having some personal love for Krishna. And how do we develop that? By listening to Krishna Katha, we can develop that love. And when we listening to Krishna Katha, and also just trying to understand that Krishna Katha at a higher level, like you said, that here is the Bhagavan Sri Krishna, where he says, Paritranai sadhuna vinasaya tu duskritam. So he's here with the Krishna book. As we can see in the last few chapters unfolding, on one hand, Krishna is going and killing all the demons and Putana and Bakasura and all this. And at the same time, he just not come there to just kill the demons, but he's also come there to protect his devotees and also engage in this beautiful divine pastime with his devotees as well. So this is the other aspect where Krishna is spending time, this divine leelas also. There is the love aspect and there is an annihilation aspect as well. So that's why we find it's so beautiful to understand. It's just not about just going and killing the demons, but again, this beautiful divine pastimes is what will help us in developing our love for Krishna. Because if it's only about killing Bakasura, then how do we develop our love for Krishna? But by this beautiful loving relationship with the gopis and with the Radharani, and that's when we can see that Krishna has such a beautiful other part of leelas which are all about joyfully how we can how the leelas are happening. So that will give us an idea that this is what how Krishna reciprocates to his devotees as well. So very well said, Sanjay. It is so important actually, because like I remember like when I came first to when I was just in the initial stages when I just landed up coming to the manager, everybody were like, "How many rounds you're chanting? How many rounds you're chanting?" And I'm like, but what is this chanting and how do we get into the mood of chanting and how do we take it? So there is a systematic way, like, that when we are engaged in reading the Krishna book and when we are somebody is explaining about why chanting and what are the things that you can do to engage yourself in chanting in a mood of devotion and not just mechanical chanting. So all these things are lead up to to help us in our chanting and things like that, which will bring us closer towards Krishna. And it's just not about how many rounds you're chanting, but it's also about like developing this mood of love towards Krishna. And when we are chanting in that mood, that is when actual reciprocation will happen in Krishna. That when
Absolutely. Yeah. Well said, Prabhu. Yes. Very
yeah.
true.
So
Yeah, it's not about the numbers like that we have to commit to. It's about even if it's few rounds, but
yeah,
those are like pure rounds. If we have,
yeah,
then uh, that should be one-to-one connection. The connection should never lose between us and Krishna. Then it's pure chanting. Yeah, and doing that, like we develop the mood to do it even more. Like some like sweet recipe or something, whichever, or somebody like savories. So when you have a little bit and then you want to have more, right? To
yes,
have more, yeah, prasadam, whatever somebody likes, like spicy things. So they like to have even more. So first you have a little taste and then you enjoy the rest. So it's chanting is like that. So yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, very, very well said. Yeah, I think that's why these are realizations are very important. And just not about reading, but just sharing our realizations with you. So thanks so much for that, Sanchit. Much like so. Yeah, so we'll close for today, and then again we'll catch up next Thursday. Thanks so much, Radhika Vikamatji. Really appreciate joining. It's very nice of you. Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna, yeah. I just felt, I don't know why I felt called to join.
That's so nice of you.
yeah, it's Radharani's call here, Mataji, because yeah, today was describing the rasa dance and you're there. So like you have been to dhams and Lord just wanted you to hear this pastime. So yeah, that's a blessing to have your association, Mataji, all the
Yeah,
time.
Krishna,
thank you.
I'm very fortunate. I'm very,
Yeah, every Thursday we have Krishna Katha Mantajip. So whenever you can, I know all of us we have challenges in our day-to-day life, but
yeah.
that would be really cool. Nice. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Hare
Yasya kripa sindhu
Hare
yogi
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo
Vaishnavi
Namo Namo.
Krishna.
Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki
Padma
jai.
Jai.
All
Hare
glories to your service, Prabhu. Hari Bol,
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
all glory to
Hare
you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol.